Hey, welcome back to the channel and happy Halloween out there, all you ghouls and goblins. This video might drop on Saturday or Halloween, I'm not sure yet, but whenever you see it, happy Halloween. I hope you have a great Halloween weekend. Before we get into this very troubled production of Halloween 6, do me a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell, that way you get notified every time I upload a video, and join me here. I would appreciate that. Now on Halloween 6, the producer's cut. I reviewed Halloween 6, the theatrical cut, last fall. You can search for that. I am going to create a playlist of all the Halloween film, all my Halloween reviews and my ranking that I did last week after I dropped this one, so you'll be able to find that a day later. I'll upload that to my channel. Now, after Halloween 5, which didn't do quite as well as Halloween 4, and was quite the disappointment for fans and box office, it made, I think, a little over $11 million on a $5 million budget. So it still made some money, but not as much as Halloween 4. It was not a success or as positively received by fans as Part 4. Moustapha Akkad had let the rights lapse, and John Carpenter made a play to get the rights back. He was going to take them to New Line. He was unsuccessful. Moustapha Akkad kept the rights and took them to Dimensions Film. Now, Dimensions at this point already had Hellraiser franchise, and they had the Mimic franchise, well, about to have the Mimic franchise, because they churned out direct-to-video films left and right. And this film was a very troubled production. Matter of fact, for years, the only way to see this version of this cut of the film was through a bootleg VHS tape on eBay. I had bought one of those VHS tapes. A very shitty transfer, but you can get the gist of what they were going for. Now, a lot of people had touched this film script-wise before Daniel Farrens was hired with his script, his take on the film. Even Quentin Tarantino was in talks to maybe script this film. I think he wrote like an outline, like a 5-page outline for the film that wasn't used. You could read about that online. It was definitely unique and would have been a different Halloween film for sure, and probably would have been a very interesting one just to see what he would have done with it. But Daniel Farrens was a huge fan of the series, and his goal coming in to talk to Moustapha Akkad was to bridge 4 or 5, this film, with 1 and 2, but taking the series in a whole other direction, while also explaining a lot of the lingering questions from Part 5. Because as we all know, the Man in Black is introduced in Part 5, and the tattoo on Michael's wrist. And none of that shit's explained in Part 5. As a matter of fact, Scream Factory just released a 4K version of Part 5, and they put the original beginning on that disc that you can watch with Dr. Death, who puts the tattoo on Michael and explains it a little bit more. Now, that beginning of that film was reshot with the old man, as we all know, but they kept the tattoo thing in the Man in Black and never explained anything, leaving it to whoever made Part 6 to explain this shit. Not an easy thing to do. So Daniel Farrens came in with this cult aspect, and based on the Thorn Ruin, this constellation of stars that appears every so often on Halloween night, and that's when Michael appears. That's where he gets his power from. And now, we're going to talk about the troubles behind this production and a little bit about the producer's cut, the differences here between the theatrical version and the producer's cut. But I'm not going to go through the whole film. I assume we're all Halloween fans. We've seen this part of the franchise at some point or the other. Matter of fact, this is the first part in the Halloween franchise that I actually saw theatrically. I saw this opening night, that Friday night when it came out on September 29th of 1995. I was lucky enough to go see it with a couple friends of mine. Now, the producer's cut's an hour and 36 minutes long, where the theatrical cut's an hour and 27 minutes long. Just had a $5 million budget. The theatrical version made 15.1 upon release. Now, more successful than Part 5, but still wasn't very well received because the way it was chopped up and reshot by the time it came out, I think left even more questions than it answered. Now, in the producer's cut, the main differences are there's more cult scenes in the producer's cut, where it was cut way down in the theatrical cut, and he added a lot of gore scenes. They amped up the score, and the ending's totally different than in this version, for sure. Now, Donald Pleasence shot all his scenes, and when they were finished production, he passed away shortly after. So when they went back to reshoot, the mandated reshoots by the Weinstein brothers, fucking Weinstein brothers, he was not around. So they had to shoot around the scenes they already shot of Dr. Loomis and use whatever they already had. And they did cut a few moments out from Loomis's Donald Pleasence's performance, for sure, because he had a little bit more to do in the producer's cut, although not a whole lot. Now, Joe Chappelle directed this film. We'll go down the cast here quickly. Donald Pleasence is back to play Dr. Loomis. We got Paul Rudd playing Tommy Doyle. This is his first major theatrical film. This was shot first, although Clueless beat it to release first. Clueless was released first. This came out later, but this was his first film. Marianne Hagen plays Kara Strode. A new clan of Strode family members lives in the old Myers house. And this house definitely looks more like the Myers house than it did in Part 5, because that freaking house was a mansion. It made no sense, and it was a major what the F when you saw that house. Like, this is not the Myers house. Myers house was never that big. George Wilbur was back to play Michael Myers, although he did not come back for the reshoots. Somebody else played Myers in the reshoots. And you could tell if you watch both versions what was a reshot scene and what was in the original cut, for sure. Because the theatrical cut is more MTV style editing. The score is amped up, has a lot more hard rock riffs to it. And although I like the theatrical cut for the atmosphere and the fast pace, there's a lot of WTF moments in that film we're going to talk about. J.C. Brandy was brought in to play Jamie Lloyd, which is another point of contention for the fans. Danielle Harris kind of got screwed by the Weinstein brothers. She wasn't even asking for that much money, and they wouldn't give it to her to come back. They kind of treated her like shit, which is a shame because she was such an integral part to 4 and 5. And to treat her like that is just, well, that's the Weinstein brothers. They sucked. They sucked then, and they still suck now. Mitchell Ryan plays Dr. Wynn, a character that we saw briefly in the original film when Dr. Loomis, after Michael escaped, was arguing with that doctor. And he happens to say, how did he get to Haddonfield? He can't even drive a car. And Dr. Loomis goes, well, he did very well last night. That character returns in this film, but he's played by Mitchell Ryan in this film. And Mitchell Ryan was in Lethal Weapon as the main bad guy. And he was in Magnum Force with Clint Eastwood. He's been on a ton of other things, but those are the two things that always pop into my head. Now, right away, the differences are very apparent. The producer's cut takes its time a little bit more. There's more cult things. We even see a ceremony by the cult in the beginning of the film and towards the end, where in the theatrical cut we get that big bombastic ending in the hospital where Myers goes into that emergency room or operating room and slaughters a bunch of people, and we see him chasing Tommy and Kara and Danny down this hallway in the steam tunnels, and he kills this guy that was trying to get away from him as well. And we don't get that scene in the cells either. We basically get, once they get to the hospital at the end, Smith's Grove, we see this ceremony going on. Tommy comes in to save Danny and Kara because they want Michael to kill his baby and Kara as a sacrifice, and hopefully Danny's going to be the new Michael Myers. That's this cult's plan. And Dr. Wynn's plan is to make Dr. Loomis take over his job to shepherd the new Michael Myers, although how that's going to work, it's not. The producer's cut's not perfect. As a matter of fact, Daniel Farrance has said there's a lot of things he wrote that never even made into the producer's cut. That's his preferred version of the film, but his script even explained some of that more, went into more detail on those things. So I would have loved to have seen his original script shot. Sadly, we're never going to see it. What we can watch now is about as good as it's ever going to get. And at the end, Tommy stops Michael with those rocks, and he performs that little spell and stops Michael dead in his tracks. And then we find Dr. Wynn on the floor dressed as Michael. Loomis pulls his mask off as Dr. Wynn, and Michael walks off down this darkened hallway in a trench coat and a hat on. And Loomis gets that tattoo on his wrist that means he's taking over for Wynn, and he screams manically, and that's the end of the film. That's the end of the producer's cut. In the theatrical cut, after they get away, they end up in this room with like fetuses and aquariums. It's very weird. Like, they were trying to take it away. The Weinstein's mandate was they showed the producer's cut, the original cut. They had a test screening. It didn't go well. So they ordered these reshoots, which they didn't do until July of '95, which was 2 months before the film was going to get released. Donald Pleasance wasn't around, so they had to write around him. And they shot these scenes, and they were their mandate was to cut back on the cult aspect and try to explain it another way. I think they were trying to go in a genetic testing kind of way, although there's still little bits of cult stuff in there. So it doesn't jive really all that great. Although, again, I think the theatrical cut is a fun watch. They definitely amp up the gore, where in this one, there's some blood, but it's definitely scaled back, and it's more towards the original film, violence-wise. The violence is definitely scaled back. There is some violent moments, but it's nowhere near the theatrical cut. They amp it up to 11 in the theatrical cut. There's more mood to the producer's cut in terms of, it's more like that John Carpenter mood. It takes its time. The score is more like Carpenter's original. They take out the guitar riffs out of it and the amped up score, and the editing is definitely more calm. It's not the MTV fast cut editing. It's more in line with some of the rest of the series than what the theatrical cut ended up being after the mandating reshoots. Now, is this version perfect? No, there's still a lot of questions they don't answer. And again, like I said, Daniel Farrance's original script was never fully shot. They never had the opportunity to. They were hoping to go back and do it, and there was a big legal battle between Mustafa Akkad and his Paul Freeman and the Weinsteins. about who's going to control which cut gets released, but the Weinsteins won out. Mustafa Akkad never had a chance, and that's what we got. And the Weinsteins were known for fucking with filmmakers back then. And the director was new. He only had done a short film, I think some music videos, so he was just trying to get in the door of Hollywood, so he just went along with whatever the Weinsteins wanted. And basically we got what we got. But at least now we have a proper release on Blu-ray of the producer's cut instead of those shitty VHS bootlegs. Although, again, I bought one, so I'm right there with you if you did. I think if you're curious, it's definitely worth your time to see the differences. I've even watched the theatrical cut one night and the producer's cut the next night, just to see the differences. And there are some glaring differences in tone, the way it's edited, the music, some of the story elements. It's all there. And it's definitely one of those things that makes for an interesting watch now in retrospect of what happened. But overall, I would give the producer's cut a 6.5 out of 10. I like this cut a little bit better than the theatrical cut. It's not perfect. There's things I really like in it, but as terms of where it stands in the franchise, I just did a ranking video. You can check that out where I put it. I like this film. I like the theatrical version. I just recognize they're not great movies. So 6.5 out of 10 for Halloween 6, the producer's cut. What are your thoughts on this film? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Have you ever seen this version? Leave that comment down below. Let me know. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Join me here. I really would appreciate that. You all have a happy Halloween, and I'll be back in November with some, I got to do New York Ninja. I have a link to watch that before the Blu-ray drops. I got to get to that because they sent me a link. It was nice of them to do that. I got to get to that movie. I'm going to do Delta Force 2. There's going to be some more horror films, some more action films as we head through Thanksgiving and the holidays. So until then, again, happy Halloween and bye.